Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Ike Eisenmann. And I have to say that when Ike and I started this, and I'm not kissing up whatsoever, when Ike and I started this, I had two guests who are at the top of my list. And our following guest is one of them. And I'm really excited to welcome Meeno Peluce from Voyagers. And Meeno, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. I'm good. I'm just wondering who the other one was. Was it,
The other one was Chris
or something?
Makepeace from My Bodyguard. So, but I have to say, okay, I we're really thrilled because Ike was in Voyagers as well. But the way you got here was a really great story. I just wanted to share it quickly. I posted a video, one of our pop culture video, retro videos about Bad News Bears. And one of our followers, Deron Redding, said he just talked to Meeno, who was in the TV series Bad News Bears. I said, oh, well, Meeno's on that wish list. And he said, oh, I'll arrange that. And so that was great. Thank you, Deron, for arranging all that. And now let's get started with the rest of the show. So I have here a bunch of questions. Now, I saw that, like Ike, you started so young. I want to know how you get into acting. And the same thing with Ike, I was always impressed. I tell him that he was such a natural at a young age. And I thought the same thing of you. You had the quality. How did you get into it? Was it something that you expressed an interest in? Or did your parents kind of steer you into it?
All right. So my path to becoming an actor in Hollywood was a fun one. I was born in Amsterdam because my folks had split America at the end of the 60s to go on their journey, their odyssey to India. But I was part of that trip on the way. So I was born in Amsterdam, lived there the first couple of years of my life, and then into India and Nepal for the next years of my life, soaking up all that wonderful madness. That's where I gave myself my name Meeno as a baby in response to whatever wild synthesis of inputs I was getting. Then we came back to America and my parents split up, and so my mom, as this new single mom, had to figure out how to support herself and her kid. And so she started catering using all the wild foods she'd learned to cook all over the world. And I would go with her sometimes to these sets. And, I was just a really playful, inventive little kid, used to entertaining myself from being all over the world on the road. And we'd get home and she'd say, oh, they saw you playing and they wanted to put you in that commercial. And I thought, well, why didn't you let me? Well, no, you're too young. And I finally got a play at school. And I didn't tell her because I thought she'd say, you're too young, you can't do it. So they called to see if I could stay late for rehearsals. And she said, rehearsals for what? So it came out again. All right, this is what I've got this interest, this natural affinity for play that I've always had and still do. And she said, all right, if you wait till you're 7, you can give it a professional try. And on my 7th birthday, I went to an agent. They dug it. They signed me up. And that was it. It was real simple. And it was never anything more than just that simple eagerness to go play. And that's why I was, as a kid, that's why I was good at it, because as a little kid, you're unalloyed with preconceptions of self and all this shit. You just play. You get the words to say, you say them. But now, as a director, I realized that that kid magic also, that kid magic for being an actor starts with that just honest, sincere ability to just be natural. But it's also tempered, for the good ones, with a certain professionalism. The simple things like not looking in the camera, like all that stuff. People would say, "Wow, you're really good," and I would say, "Well, that's what you brought me here to do, is to be really good." No,
Yeah.
I took all that for granted. It's not until I've worked with different kids that I see, like, oh yeah, some of them have this intuitive way of just being, while you're just pretending inside this giant structure of a production. And other kids are amazed by it all, and so they can't stay focused in the moment. So, as a kid actor, I learned that great lesson of how to do make believe as a profession, as a professional endeavor, but never having it be anything more than, yeah, just a day of going to play. Like, that's, other kids go to the park to play. I went to the set to play. So it was very natural for me, and I loved it. And I, certainly thankful to my folks for letting that happen. But I was the one who really spearheaded that.
So
And
you
Yeah, I
pushed.
gotta tell you, I'm sort of jumping in for a second because you just described exactly what I went through as well, and I love hearing someone else bring it up, because of course I have contemporaries and friends who are child actors, and everyone kind of comes at it in a slightly different way. But if you don't have those exact elements, the play and professional understanding, it doesn't work. And I'm glad to see that you see it, because I saw it in other children as well. But that whole idea that I love to play, and I lived in my head a lot, which is what made me a natural, but
Right.
I wanted it to mean something. So doing it professionally and being with other people that did it professionally meant that my play meant something, and it wasn't just, it was play, and it meant it. I mean, I just, for the first time, I'm putting that together based on what you just shared. So thank you for your
The,
personal insight there.
one of the one of the things I didn't understand as a kid was, you're on set, and like I got it that, like, okay, you got to go to school on set too, so like
Yeah.
between every take you're hustled off to the classroom, whether that's in a motorhome, whether that's like on a board on your lap while you're sitting on a little stool, but you got
Hmm.
to get in your 3 hours of school a day at least, right?
Hmm.
So I could dig that, but what always pissed me off was that what felt like me to me the middle of the day, I had to go home because I could only be on set so many hours, and all these grown-ups who I felt totally in league with because I was being just as professional as them, why do they get to stay and keep working?
Yep, I talk same thing, same thing, same thing. It's so funny because you just really get on a roll by 5 or 6 o'clock, and then, all right, that's it. The kids are wrapped, So yeah, I get it.
I find it hysterical that your mom said you had to wait till the ripe old age of 7. You
Yeah.
know, that's amazing. And then you got an agent like so quickly. Did you think it's just that easy? I mean, and then you got your first gig, I think, like a couple of weeks after that.
Yeah, and the problem is that, of course, I've assumed that everything should be that easy. You know what? Like, I've got this great marriage, I've got great kids, we've got a great home, I've got a great career, still in telling stories with imagery, whether it's photography or cinematography, and I have a hard time ever taking it more seriously than just, let's play.
Now you got the first thing that I read. I mean, that you got like afterwards was Starsky and Hutch was the first role that you had.
So it's awesome. Starsky and Hutch, I go in for my first day on the set, right? I really have no idea what that's going to be like. I've certainly got an idea of sets because I've grown up on sets, so that's no problem. Like, that's not foreign to me, right? But like, what's it going to be now that I've got to do it? And my first experience is I'm playing this little kid who's been beat by his mother. So my first experience of going to set is 3 fucking hours in makeup while they do all this stuff on my back.
Oh dear, good grief.
And so I thought, okay, yeah, these are the rigors. This is cool. And then the best part is like the first shot we do is Starsky and Hutch pulling me out of a trash can. So I'm in a trash can, I'm getting yanked out, and like that's not comfortable. And and those two actors, man, they were something else, because I'm trying to like observe them, right? How do you do this? And I realized like they've got anger issues and this stuff that they're bringing their anger from off stage onto the stage, but they're utilizing it. That was a good lesson. Like whatever you're working with, utilize it, channel it. Um, these are the things I picked up along the way. How I did that as a tiny kid, I was just intuitive.
Now, were you nervous at all going in? I mean, just you wanted to act and you were in a school play, but this is like the big time now. Were you just at all nervous, or nothing? Was that didn't phase you?
It's funny. It's either something I learned then that I bring to life now, or it's just an innate response. But like when I'm asked to do something, I go, okay, it's my show. I'm going to do it my way. And because I'm doing it my way, there's not an inherent nervousness to it because I'm trying to figure it out. I just figure, okay, I must be here to do it. I must be here to do me, so I'm just going to do me, and thus, I get alleviated from those weird stresses of anxiety, particularly in the moment. And so like that's one of my fortes, is working in the moment, and that's why I've gravitated to a lifetime in things like making great moments with imagery, because you need to have a facility with moments, with being in the moment, with nailing the moment, with teasing from the moment the magic that is there to be given. And and my wife's a planner, and that's why we work well together.
We do. We need the planner. So is mine.
Oh,
she
yeah.
makes the list. She sets up the honeydew list and schedules everything except for these shows. So yeah, I need the same thing. Otherwise, I'm just yeah. I think it's just the artist life. I think that's just it. Because if you don't think that way, if you don't function that way, you can't. I don't think you really can connect to great art. And that's all about sharing it with other people, whether it's you're performing or working in the visual field. Can't wait to talk to you about your photography, which I absolutely love, by the way. But boy, my other little thing here for me is I'm so glad that you were quite a few years behind me in the business, because I would have been really mad losing all my parts out to you, because you're one of the best child actors, and I always pointed out to the ones that I recall with great admiration and respect, because I know we'll get to Voyagers in a minute too, but man, it was so great working with you, and I had a really good time. So no, you were fantastic, and clearly your resume supported that easily.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to Voyagers, I have a couple of others to cover. I mean, but we will, and we'll cover your photography. But I had totally forgotten when I was doing the research. I had totally forgotten that you were in Amityville Horror.
Oh yeah,
totally forgotten that, and I want to know what that experience was like, and if it's similar. I've spoken to Ike about horror movies, and he doesn't find them scary just because he knows all the backstage process from it. So I wonder, how were you at all scared doing that because you were so young?
So doing it, filming it, I wasn't scared at all. I was certainly intrigued in that, I had the sense that this was an actual movie, a big movie, and that was cool. I had the sense of the story because I was young enough that I didn't sit down and read the script. My mom read the script and then told me the story, and she read the book and told me. She was a great storyteller, and I really get that gift from my mom. And then I would learn my lines for each day and learn the scenario, and that's the thing. But like when you're doing it in pieces like that, it's all broken out of the continuum. So again, there's no impending sense of doom. You're just doing the work. Now you're doing the work in the context of being scared, but for me, I was doing it in the context of being totally excited because I told him I got to do my own stunt. And I had that stunt where I fall down the stairs, smash the light bulb, and fall down the stairs into the haunted basement. And I got to do that.
Oh
So
my!
I was just
Wow.
so stoked about that. And and like going on location the first time to Toms River, New Jersey, that was kind of a big deal. But I mean, I like maybe in my kid's brain it was as big a deal that they had an indoor pool, which seemed incredibly exotic to me. And we would swim at the pool when we weren't on set.
I'm shocked that they'd let you do that stunt. But,
Yeah, I put my foot down, damn it.
right. So watching it later, were you able to distance yourself? I mean, were you
Oh,
scared watching it?
so that's the thing, though, right? So then we get invited to the premiere, Chinese theater, packed house, go in, and it was scary as shit. A little kid, I didn't go to scary movies. Yeah, I had all the joy, all the thrill of a scary movie. Yeah, it was very scary.
Now, in your mind, did you differentiate movie from TV role? I mean, did this like, oh, this is so much bigger now that you're in a movie?
No,
No.
no. I mean, I had done this really funny low budget horror flick just before that,
Mm-hmm.
which turns out to like still be in the canon of B horror movies. And the guy who directed it, he's still, an aficionado in that canon and everything. So it's called Don't Go in the Park or Don't Go Near the Park or something like this.
I'm gonna have to check that
And
out.
and I certainly had the respect for the fact that that was done, with like 4 people, and now here we're at MGM doing it with lots of people. Um, but like as a kid, you're open to the nuance of all new experience, right? Because you're not categorizing things a priori. You're just like, okay, what's this? How do we do this? Let's go. And that made for a really rich childhood, a really vivid childhood, a lot of great memories. Particularly
uh,
like opening the door. We had our little schoolroom on the side of the set of the house. The house was on the set was in different levels, right?
mhm.
So there was kind of the main level and there was like a lawn outside. So that lawn became our little football field for break time out of the classroom. And one day Margot Kidder comes and she's playing catch with us, and it's awesome because we're all in love with Margot Kidder. She's this luminous creature, and then she runs into her dressing room at the end of the thing there, and we're waiting for her to come back out and keep playing with us. So I just walk over and open the door, and like there I am face to face with Margot Kidder's big black bush, and it was amazing. It was it was my moment out of the Tin Drum. Yeah, it was massive.
Wow.
Must have been fun filming after that. Well, now I have to watch the movie in a new light. I mean, Ike mentioned your career seemed very parallel in a lot of things. Like Ike, you were in everything in the 70s. I mean, everything I saw, every major TV show you had a part in. But then you get on a series, The Bad News Bears with Jack Warden, which I remember at the time that I was surprised got made into a TV show because I was wondering how they were going to translate, the kids, which is, I love that movie. So, and you even played Tanner. Had you?
All right, so here you go, right? So I was a huge Bad News Bears fan as a little kid, as every little kid in the 70s was.
Mm-hmm.
So now, like, my mom says, "Oh, you're going in for an interview for the Bad News Bears TV show." Okay, great. And again, like, yeah, I mean, in my brain, there was no huge differentiation between movies and TV. Like this was just the stuff you consumed. I was the only one in the house who had a TV, right? Um, so like that's cool. I'll go do that. And I get there to this giant casting call, and they give me the sides for Ogilvy, the brainy kid with the glasses. But I see these other sides for Tanner over here, and I'm thinking, I don't want to be the nerd. I want to be the tough guy. So when I go in to read, I tell them, I want to read these other ones. And they say, yeah, but we we're thinking of you for this part. I said, all right, I'll read those. But you got to let me read the other ones too. And of course, I read the Tanner ones and they loved it and I got the part.
Oh, good for you. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Now, what are some of your memories of that show? I mean, at some point they stopped doing baseball at all on that show. They started doing everything but baseball toward the end of it. And I want to know what Jack Warden was like also.
Yeah, that was a particularly special thing to be involved with at that moment in my life, right? Because I was 8 years old, right? My sister at that point's 2 years old. I didn't have any brothers. My friends were the kids, who lived in the apartment buildings with me. So all of a sudden now I'm going to a place where there's 12 of us. Like this is heaven, right? Like we're all a bunch of precocious little badasses. And so in scenes where like we're looking all scuffed up and roughed up, that's not art direction. That's because we're playing tackle football in between the shots. Yeah, so we had a really good time because there was all this camaraderie. There was that connection. Like when we would go to school on the set, we had our own little schoolroom. We knew that we were in kind of when we go to the baseball field and shoot that stuff, I was just kids on a baseball field. You couldn't be happier, right? But when we were on the set, on the Paramount, there was something really special to that. One, because that was the set that had been the set for the Brady Bunch. And we knew that because there were the dressing rooms that had belonged to the Brady Bunch kids. And so like, and we knew that because the walls were covered in all the little class pictures that all the fans had sent in. So we knew we were in some kind of hallowed ground to things that actually meant something to us. Like we all watched the Brady Bunch. Later, I realized that's also the stage where Tom Hagen comes when he comes to California to let the producer know that he's gonna let Johnny in the movie. And he says, "I'll never let that kid in the picture." And he winds up with a horse's head in this. So that stage where he visits him, that was the stage we worked on.
Oh, that's outstanding. That always makes it so much fun because studios have such history. So much happens. I had a similar experience on Escape to Witch Mountain working, because Disney only has like 4 stages and only one decent sized one, but they had a special effects stage they called it the sodium stage. And I remember stomping around because the floor was kind of hollow, and it turns out that was the stage on which they shot 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. There was a water pit below that. And I thought, I mean, I don't know why that one movie and that one moment impacted me more than thinking about everything else that had been shot on those stages. But all of a sudden I thought, my God, the giant squid was down there, in the submarine. So it just makes it rich in ways that I find incredible and really enjoyable.
It's funny because, when you are kind of steeped in the lore and you realize that you're being given this opportunity to be part of that lore, that's really cool.
Yeah.
One of the one of my great connections to pop culture is the fact that when we shot Voyagers on the back lot of Universal, we would just routinely jump onto the trams of the tour and like lead the tour across the bridge with the shark and stuff. Yeah, that was great.
That is
So much
awesome.
fun that we would just kind of
Yeah.
go own that for ourselves.
I obviously we all worked on all the different lots, but I did do a number of shows at Universal, and that just used to dumbfound me that I'd be walking to the stage or past the set or from the parking lot, and there's the tram waving by and driving by, and people would stare at you and take pictures. I mean, no matter who you were, it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be my closest relationship to celebrity is that kind of stuff where I had been a kid on the tram. That was awesome. So now I could have totally appreciate the kids on the tram, and I would want to give them that moment of connection.
That's great.
Well, and how was it like with Jack Warden? How was he working with?
Jack Warden was great. I mean, that that salty character with a chomping on a cigar, that was just him.
That was him.
Of course. But in so many ways also he was part of that that firmament of adults who were making things happen. So I guess that was the difference about Voyagers, because a lot of other things I was in, like I was the kid in the thing. Mm-hmm. So now I'm connected with Telly Savalas because like this is what's going on, right? But on the set with 12 other kids, you're like you're an animal. You just revert. Like I'm just going to be a kid. Parents and adults are just this weird thing that happens above your head.
On another series, I actually watched an episode this past weekend in preparation of Best of the West. I had totally forgotten about that show too, and I remember liking it at the time too. So what was that like? I mean, I remember being disappointed that it ended. What were some of your memories of that?
So I mean, that's one of those experiences where like I'm the only kid on set, right? So right. Now I'm much more connected to all the really cool adults that are making this thing, and obviously they were all super proficient comedians and stuff, and so I was kind of trying again through intuition to pick up what is this comedic timing thing that everyone's so good at. And the secret sauce was also I would just go next door to Taxi and watch them shooting that. Wow. And watch them. You understand, like the way those shows worked was Friday night they got done in front of a live audience, like a play. That was wonderful. But that meant Monday morning you had sides in your hand and you were working it out like an actor on stage. And so, if you go next door to watch Taxi, watch them working out their beats, their moments, their cues, all that shit. Amazing. It's fantastic. And then, of course, like Robin Williams is walking by to lunch, Tom Hanks. That was the crew. And so that was another like very special time in my life, special because the connections with all the actors were wonderful. The connection with what I was doing as a craft was terrific. The connections between like place, that was such an interesting set, right? So this again, you're doing it as a stage piece on a floor. All sets have only 3 walls, but there are these giant sets. So the walls swung and you would open up the cabin, and then that would swing and you'd open up the general store where you could go in and steal like the little gummy candies out of the thing, but they were props, so they were always nasty and hard. And then that would swing and make this giant saloon. So total appreciation for stagecraft. There was Thursdays when you would now pretty much have everything set. You'd know most of your lines. So now you would kind of do a dress rehearsal, but for the cameras, because now the cameramen who hadn't been there the rest of the week had to learn their moves. And so I got this big appreciation then for what is that orchestration of camera movement and as an actor playing to camera, and how do all those pieces go together. And that's of course so much of where my head is at all the time now. So again, a time of tremendous education, and and a time, kind of a priceless time in my own life, because it was really positive. The fact that these series would like go 2 seasons and then end, that was not a huge consideration to me. Like, I grew up, you'd live in an apartment for a year or two, and then you move to another apartment. So you
Well,
would do a show for a year or two, which again, 2 seasons in a kid's life, that's a long time. So yeah, of course we're gonna go do the next thing. Um, so that wasn't a big deal, but but it was part of the kind of apocryphal moments of those pieces of childhood, right? And it was kind of neat. You skip forward many years, and and I've got this photography career now, and I'm working with Interscope Records, and they said, listen, we've only got $500 to go shoot this woman called Lady Zydeco. She's this kind of older black lady, but she's a guitar wizard from New Orleans. So I go and I make these beautiful pictures of her, and the next week I get another call. We've got another $500. I know it's small, but like, it's another up and coming artist. Her name's Lady Gaga, and so I'm thinking I'm going to go shoot this another like old black lady, and so I go to the set, and at first I go to the dressing area, and I'm introduced to her, and I'm, oh, okay, surprise, okay, this is not Lady Zydeco, this is a whole different genre of pop, and we go down to shoot, and it's a magic day, because one, this young woman, like, you can really see it through the lens when someone has it, right? This translation to 2 dimensions, this translation to the life through the lens. But when you see those stars, boy, you know. And she was incredible. She was it from the get-go. This is like one of her first things. This was her first music video. And what was awesome was, they were borrowing the sound stage of a TV show that had these opulent sets that kind of went with her song. It was that stage from Best of the West.
oh wow.
Right? So, like, I'm the old hand coming home to this world, witnessing the birth of this new star. I'm a young guy, but I'm recognizing, like, I'm a veteran in the face of someone who's just beginning their great career. But I knew it was a great career. And yeah, that was a totally magic day.
Oh,
And
that's
your photos
outstanding.
of Lady Gaga are fantastic. I saw those too on your site. Well, now we're going to come into Voyagers. It was absolutely my favorite show of when I was a kid. That was the first show I remember being devastated when it was canceled. I was so upset when that was canceled. And so that's why it was interesting that you said that it didn't affect you with childhood as much as probably it did some of the adults. But for me as a viewer, I was so upset. Just want to know, how did you get that role? How did you wind up with it? And, just anything you can remember about going into that show.
All right, so Voyagers is particularly fantastic, because Voyagers was really driven by the magic of chemistry. There's a mercurial nature to any creative thing where you can put all the effort into the world to it and it's still shit, or all the pieces somehow fall together. And even if it's something like, looking back now, it's like, oh yeah, this is 80s TV. This is like, it was a lot of, production standards that were much lower than they are now.
Mhm.
And yet still it's total magic. Like, where does the magic come from? Chemistry. So Voyagers, my journey, my voyage to Voyagers begins again with, it's a cattle call. You get called in, you get the sides, you go in and read them, and then they're like, yes, we're liking this, now we're going to bring you in to meet the networks, right? So they had rounded it down to 2 kids and 2 guys. The other kid, He's this kind of blonde, roly-poly kid with glasses, kind of, he's the archetypical nerd. And the other guy was this older, more Harrison Ford kind of guy. So we get in there, and I go read with the old guy, and Jon-Erik goes and reads with the kid. So they would do things, and it's good, we know the scene, we've got it on its feet, we're doing a thing, and it works just fine. And then the other guy and the other kid go in, and Jon-Erik and I start to rehearse it. And we're like laughing to ourselves. And we walk in and we laugh to the brass of NBC, because we've got this. Like it's indisputable. Like this is exactly what this is supposed to be. They watch us go through it once and they say, yes, this is exactly what it's supposed to be. And the next thing you know, it's awesome. We're going to our fittings at the wardrobe department on the back lot. All right, so I'm 12 years old. So, what's important in my life? Being able to throw a spiral, a good spiral, is an important thing to a 12-year-old boy, right? So after we do our fittings, Jon-Erik says to my mom, hey, listen, can Meeno stay and hang out with me, and we'll go walk around the back lot, and we'll get to know each other, and I'll bring him home. Perfect. So not only am I like walking around the back lot of Universal, which I've really only seen from the tour bus before this, right? Now we have it all to ourselves, like some kind of interlopers. We're hanging out. I've got like the coolest big buddy in the world, because he can fucking throw a spiral 100 yards. So we were walking through this with a football, with all that instant chemistry that we had there, and it was really a great friendship. And he really was the hugest, hardest, open guy. It was wonderful, right? So we become fast pals. We go to the first day of shooting. We're at Indian Dunes, which is this whole neat area out past Magic Mountain, which was, Magic California. This is where they make movies in the woods. And we're down by the river, and we're doing the scene where Moses is in a basket floating down. And this is the scene that we know so well, because this is the same scene that we've done so many times in the rehearsals for getting the gig. So now we're going to execute it. We're going to put it on its feet for the camera, make it magic. We do the first take wide. It's beautiful. Everyone's loving it. The whole crew is like coming into the synergy of the thing. A couple takes later, move things around. Jon-Erik says to me, hey, come over here, because we're the pals now, right? Like, we're getting to know everybody else, but now we're the old fast friends. And he says to me, how come you're on the other side of the camera? And I figured it out. Oh, right. I'm the veteran. You're the newbie. Jon-Erik, this is your close-up.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he had totally bullshitted his resume into this gig. And he was just a natural, gregarious, outgoing guy. But like, his one acting experience was as a broccoli in 3rd grade.
Holy cow. Wow. I've heard I can't name them, stories similar to that, where other people have just, you always say, well, how do you get your first gig? How do you get into the business? And everyone, I mean, the smarter, more creative ones like John managed to pull that off. And that's incredible. That's really incredible.
Yeah.
Did you feel any? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, it's just Voyagers was magic, because think about, like, every episode was different sets, different costumes, different time zones. I mean, you couldn't get more of a piece of variety in the work. And this is interesting. The crew stays the same, right? Mm-hmm. But every week, the cast, other than Jon-Erik and I, changes. So so we become like the ambassadors to the show. And often the director changes as well, right? Sometimes you have reoccurring directors, but the director of photography changes, and he stays the same. The grips stay the same. The catering people, like that's the family. And then you have these other people who come in, and you realize as ambassadors, your job is to like welcome them in, to get them to be part of the magic. And it was really positive.
I was going to ask that because this is the first time. I mean, you were on a show, but not the main. This is the first time you're the guy. I mean, at least one of them on the show. So bringing in people, and I was going to include Ike in this one too. You had to bring in the guest stars each week, and so Ike, a little bit. If you could add something about how it felt when you came into the show.
Well,
I watched your episode.
He just described exactly what the environment was like. I really had the rich experience of having worked on so many different shows. I mean, so many different shows, so many different sets, and so many different personalities. And the three. Well, Disney was always a favorite because that was a family anyway. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. The same crew, same people, no matter what project I did. But Little House on the Prairie was an incredible environment. Michael Landon was very, very conscious of making that set very family-like and welcoming, and she seemed like everyone was in a good mood all the time, no matter how hard they were working. And then when I came, instantly my first moment on the set of Voyagers, I mean, you were exactly that. You were completely welcoming. Jon-Erik was just an amazing guy. And I just remember him being so freaking funny all the time, which is, you guys just made it fun. And I always had a little bit of a love-hate relationship working with other child actors. And because sometimes it was good, sometimes it was like pulling teeth, sometimes it was awkward, and maybe we got along, maybe we didn't. But you were just a joy to work with. I mean, so incredibly professional. And what made it even better for me was my little secret about my time on your set. And I'm so sorry if anybody else suffered for this, but I got the flu like the day before my first day, and I was sick as a dog. I had like 103-degree fever almost every day I worked with you guys. And so I was beat up, and I was just dragging myself to the set. I don't even know how I drove myself there. And I felt like, in a weird way, that it was like some of the best work I did as a guest on another show, because I had to work twice as hard just to keep my eyes open. And I would go to my dressing room and pass out when I had a break because I was just worn out. So you guys made it so easy, and it was just so much fun. It was just such a fun show to do. And I just watched it again this weekend, that episode. And I haven't seen it in ages. So it was so much fun to revisit it. That was a show I love to watch as well. I was as disappointed as Jonathan when it went off the air, but such is the nature of so many shows back then. But that very environment you described as you created that. I felt exactly that way. And I had a blast, total blast.
All right. So I'll tell you the mirror story to that. So I had never had any formal acting training, right? I was vaguely aware, especially as I became more of an adolescent, that like, oh, when you really learn things, you can do them really well. But like, you can also just go do them and do them well if you happen to be gifted in that, right? And so like with Voyagers, it was interesting because different actors would come in, and you would see that some of them had technique that they were bringing to their craft, like preparation and things like this. Like they'd get quiet before their scenes, they'd be introverted, whatever it was. I think, oh, wow, okay, so this person really understands the craft of this. They're not just coming and fucking playing like the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I, of course, was a fan of yours. I'd grown up watching you. And here you were, like, coming to our world. And I thought, oh, wow, look, see, he's one of those ones that really, like, understands the craft. because he's really quiet and internal between scenes. That's something I should think about. You were just
Well,
sick. You had the flu.
I was. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, it wasn't. I can't claim any level of craft in my work. I was another organic performer. I mean, I understood the fundamentals. I learned what I could from other people. But yeah, on that show, no, I wasn't the moody, quiet, internal processing performer. Yeah, at all. I was just trying to keep upright.
And I was thinking, wow, this guy's doing some of that Brando shit. This is
That's great. Oh my gosh, that's great.
Well, and, like I think you said, I mean, you hit it on the head. To me, there was unbelievable chemistry. I just, like I said, I watched it. I loved it because I was a history buff. I was a history kid, and then time travel too. So I loved everything about it. But the chemistry between the two of you was just phenomenal. And again, so can you tell a little bit about Jon-Erik Hexum again and how it felt afterwards? I mean, I thought this guy at the time. I remember I thought this guy's going to be a huge star. I thought this guy was going to go on. His career was going to skyrocket. And I remember loving him in the show, just like, every week he was the suave. He got, you knew he got laid every week with whatever, person he met. So that's what I want to know. Could you just a little bit about him in particular?
All right, so it was so awesome having, again, like this big brother, this pal, because like his openness to camaraderie was fantastic. So here we were, this team that would work with all these different people that would come and go, and that was always wonderful. And it was funny because like we would often both get crushes on the heroine of that episode, right? But again, like at the end of the 6 p.m. or whatever it is, I got to go home, and I'm thinking, yeah, and he's gonna work another few hours and then go home with her. And but like I couldn't be happier for him. There was one woman who was a tour guide operator that we both really had a crush on, and she was more of a constant because like she'd come by on the tour more often than just the heroine of the week. And like there was a great like for a moment there, like we were three pals. That was a great feeling, like, yeah, these are my pals. And look, when you're a kid and you got someone to look up to, they chart the way, they chart the course in so many ways, knowing that like his magnanimity, his charisma, his fitness, his charm, like that was such a great, he's such a great role model for me. And then the series ended. That's a bummer, but again, I'm a kid. I go on to all the other things in my life. I go back to my little school that I had always grown up at. So I always had kind of a certain continuum between shows because it was the same kids I was growing up with and all that. And right around that time, and that's interesting too, because that school was K through 12. So like we always looked up to the big kids. So I was totally good with like looking up to a big kid. Jon-Erik was just a big kid. And then I was kind of in middle school where like the little kids were looking up to me now, and I could feel the weight of that, right? And that was right after the show ended was the first time two of the older kids who had been kind of part of the hierarchy of this round table that we all ate at, right? This was our Camelot, this little school. And two of those greatest, oldest kids got wiped out in a car crash. Oh. And so it was my first introduction to dealing with death. And it was heavy, and I was dealing it within the community of all my friends. And shortly thereafter, the second death in my life, the second great pal. And And, it was not believable. Like, how could he die? This is a person who is just manifestly more full of life than anyone else you meet. How could he be gone? That was a real growing up moment for me.
So, and how did you find out? You just on the news, or?
I remember I was asleep and my mom's boyfriend rushed in. There's been an accident. And my mom behind him with this look on her face like, no, you gotta break it more gently. That's one of those moments of childhood that stick in your craw.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, he's fucking around, because it was like we always fucked around on set. Right. There was a time I remember where we're screwing around, we're kind of like shadow boxing, and I caught his nose, and we're like rolling, and he's like, wait, hold the roll, watch this, watch, and the blood starts to come out.
Oh, geez.
So we were always messing around on set. So I thought, okay, he's playing. He did some, he fell down. He hurt himself. And then, as it was explained more, like, no, he somehow, this fake gun. And this is the story that I heard, right? Is that it's because we'd been around guns and exploding stuff a lot, and squibs going off in your face, shooting hot dirt into your face. I was used to that. But the blank in the gun is a bullet that has gunpowder in it, so it goes pow. But instead of putting a bullet in the front of that to hold that gunpowder, and they just stuff a piece of paper in there. But that paper's got to pop out, and at close range on the soft of your temple, it can do you in. And again, it seemed unimaginable, and yet there it was, brain dead. What is the brain dead? That was my first intuition of brain dead.
And so he's what you saw on the show. He was just that was him. He was just so full of life, like you're saying.
Dude, there was no method acting there. We were all just being ourselves.
So, like I said, I go back and watch the show. Probably, I watch the whole series probably like every couple of years. I go back and revisit. Do you have a particular favorite episode?
So the pilot was really special because there was kind of more expanded stuff, like working with the guys who were the Wright brothers, right? Like, these were great actors. They were wonderful. Getting to do the Richtofen fighter plane stuff, that was really special. I loved the Caesar episode, right? The Spartacus episode. And because again, I was getting to do some stunts and stuff. Here, all right, I'll give you one of the drawbacks to Voyagers. We had a 7:00 time slot, and there's all these special morality rules that the television had imposed upon itself, so they wouldn't be, so they wouldn't get manhandled, right, by government. One of the things was at 7 p.m. time slot, you couldn't have violence towards kids. I'm like, wait a minute, I want to be in the fight scenes. And you couldn't throw punches. If you watch the show, there's no punches. There's fights, but it's elbows and all this kind of stuff.
I didn't realize that. I'm going to have to check that again. Wow.
So, there were a few times where I got to like do some stunts and all that kind of stuff and be in a little bit more peril, which is a lot more fun to shoot, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so those were all, it was the shows that were that had those. And then, of course, like the guy who played Abe Lincoln, he was a profound actor, and he looked like Abe Lincoln. So I was like, this is great, man. I am acting with Abe Lincoln. This is really special.
Do you ever go back and watch the shows now at all?
Well, it's really funny because I get to show them to my kids, right? And
What do they say?
oh, they loved him. I mean, they're grown now, and they loved him when they were kids. And I get to see and be transported to that world again now as a filmmaker, right?
Right.
What are you looking for? You're looking for that. You're looking for chemistry. That's magic.
Mhm. Now, your sister Soleil Moon Frye, Punky Brewster fame. What was that dynamic like growing up? Having two working actors in the family.
So, all right. So, the beginning of Soleil's life, she's one of those people that comes out fully magical, like this mop of dark hair. I remember like walking into the bedroom the first morning after they'd just come home and seeing her and just feeling that feeling you have. Like I didn't get to feel that feeling again until I saw my own child, just like that overwhelming love. Like, oh, I just want to eat this creature. I love this creature so much. I want to consume them, have their soul in mine. She was a great character. And her dad, in a lot of ways, he was kind of in his own world. So like I did a lot of it was my mom raising the two of us. I had to help a lot with the parenting. I changed a lot of diapers, all that kind of stuff. When I had my own daughters years later, no problem. I've done this before. This is familiar territory. I was 6 years older, right?
Uh-huh.
So we had this great relationship because, we had our, the imaginative world of kids that we inhabited and all that. And she was always very gregariously creative and into that. And boy, she loved her big brother. Like when I showed her the trick, like when you take the laundry bags down the stairs to go to the laundromat, you can jump halfway off the stairs into the laundry bags. And, so she loved all that stuff. But I also noticed that she was very shy outside the house with other people. And then I also remember that day when she kind of came out from behind mom's legs on one of my set and said, now it's my turn. I thought, okay, yeah, it is. Like we've been waiting. And, what happened to Voyagers? Voyagers was the victim of the Nielsen ratings box. The Nielsen's rating box was literally a box that sat on top of people's televisions and monitored what they watched. And they watched 60 Minutes. Like the whole country watched 60 Minutes. That was the number one show, Sunday at 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
But now there was a second TV in the house, and that's where the kids were.
Mm.
They were all watching Voyagers, but that didn't have the Nielsen box on it.
Mm-hmm.
And Voyagers had these big sets. It had all these characters, all these explosions. It was an expensive show to make.
Right.
So after 2 seasons of us each week looking at the ratings from the bottom up to find ourselves, it got canned.
Yeah. That
time slot was filled with the first show to ever give 60 Minutes a run for their money. A show called Punky Brewster.
Wow. Do you have any plans to appear on the reboot?
You know what? They didn't ask me.
Oh, I'm gonna have to start a massive email campaign.
Wow.
It was really fun when I got to be on the show back then.
Right.
Because so you have to understand. So after Voyagers, I did one more series with Judd Hirsch, but we did 1 season of that. It didn't go anywhere, but that was great working with Judd Hirsch because again, I'd known him from Taxi Next Door when I did Best of the West.
Right.
I did a few more things, but by then, I'm becoming an adolescent. In the 80s, I had fucking long hair that I didn't want to cut off. I wanted to do rock and roll. And so my stake in the game of doing TV was waning. And the parts were waning. And the fact that I wouldn't cut off my hair was counting me out and all this kind of stuff. But that was all right because I was also very serious about my education and knew that soon enough I'd be going off to college, and so there was no great heartache about the fact that I just wasn't coming home from school every day and having mom come out while I'm skateboarding. You got this job, you got that job, you got this job, you got that job, because I was on to other things. But then they asked me to come in and do Punky. And that was really special because I got to do a juicy role, and I got to the role included me being fraternal to her. So I got to really bring the truth of that to it and watch my kid sister in the world where she was really the star, but I still knew, once again, I'm the veteran here.
I also read for a little bit that you did the same thing that I did for a while, that you taught history. And I want to know, first of all, which subject, and what was it like for kids? Oh, I'm being taught by a Voyager. Did that ever come up?
All right, so the way that comes about is that I go off to college. I get my degree in comparative literature. That means nothing other than I've become educated. I have taken those critical faculties that I've always had, all the ability to kind of like synthesize intuition into what's interesting about this and how does this work, and autodidactically bring new knowledge into my life. But now I'm out of college and I got some wonderful fast friends. I got this great girlfriend and I'm just living. And then that little bit of money that I still had runs out. Oh, I got to get a job.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get a job? I've never gotten a job before. I had an agent who said, go take this interview. And I did the interview and I got the gig, but I had no idea how to go get a job. And someone said, well, if you've got a bachelor's, you can go substitute teach. And because I'm autodidactic, I've always been a good teacher because I've got a sense of like, well, if you don't understand something, here's some of the ways that you can begin to understand it, piece by piece by piece, adding to what you already understand, and now you will understand a bigger thing. And I'd gotten to teach a bit in college. When I was a senior, I got to do a course where I taught the freshmen coming in, their core course. So I already knew, like, well, that's a gift I've got. Let's go use that. And boy, was it a wild ride. And because I'm substituting teaching in LA, right? Which means like they just send you wherever there's a hole for the day. And that typically means there's no lesson plan that's been left, or anything. You're just going into the most ghetto schools of Los Angeles and you're trying to entertain. Mm. So I brought all my entertainment skills to bear. And, that was humbling and that was eye-opening and all this stuff. But every once in a while you'd find a school and they would say, listen, we actually don't have a teacher for this position. We're going to have you back tomorrow. And then you'd fall into a position for a while. I was the Spanish teacher for a while. I didn't know any Spanish, but then I wound up at Hollywood High. And yeah, for sure enough, I was the history teacher. And it was profound because now like I'm sending kids off to college who are writing, I'm in college and it's your fault. And thank you so much. It's really wonderful. And sometimes we're learning things in history and I can tell them, and I met this guy. And let me tell you, they didn't know me as an actor. They just knew me as Mr. Meeno, the teacher. And it was funny because then like people through my life have come up to me and go, oh, and I figure, oh, they're recognizing me as an actor. And they're like, no, Mr. Meeno. I was ninth grade. I remember. Okay, great. And so I had that wild ride of teaching. But again, it was like this sidetrack that I didn't understand like why it was persisting for a few years. And I knew I had to get out of it to like actually go make a career as an artist. By then, I was really involved with my photography. And I got out. I said, okay, that's it. At the end of the semester, thanks so much, Hollywood High. You've been great, but I got to go. So I come back to have a beer one day with one of my pals who was the head of the history department. And he says, we haven't filled your position yet. We still need you. And at that time in my life, I had no one who needed me. So like the call of the kids, all right, I'll be there first day. So I walk into the office, the old woman there who always signed me in, she goes, "Oh, we're so happy to have you back." "Oh, thanks." She says, "But you're not the history teacher anymore." She says, "No, no, now you are the ballet teacher." And so literally, like I've done this a couple times in my life where I just had to just kind of square with the universe and go, okay,
Wow.
tell me. And I literally like, why am I here on this gray day in this gray office on this gray moment of my life? Why am I here right now? And I turned to walk out, and the new art teacher's walking in, and I said, that's why I'm here. And now it's 22 years later, and I have
Wow.
these fabulous kids, and my dharma is fulfilled.
Wow, that's
Oh,
fantastic.
outstanding.
That's great. Well, let's transition into your photography. You're a very successful photographer. You know, went behind the camera. Fans can see your work at MeenoPhoto.com, which I've been to. Great work there. What are your days like there? What are your responsibilities? I mean, I see a lot of celebrities. I know that, but what can you tell us a little bit about that now?
All right, so my current uh, incarnation as a person who works in image storytelling. That's what it's always been, right? It's always been about go to work for the day and do make believe. Do make believe believably, do it well. Find the chemistry, synthesize out of the moment the magic that is necessary. Um, so yeah, I've had this fantastic career because I had a friend who was working at Interscope, and I went and showed her the pictures I had, and she was like, "Yeah, come, start coming." And I started coming, and I started, building this whole A list of music people, and then one day, one of the guys there, he says, "I love what you're doing. You're gonna come work with me." And now all of a sudden, I'm shooting for Beats, and that kicked off like the advertising wing of my world, and through all of that, I'm doing it in stills, which are, in my mind, single movies, right?
Mhm.
Movies in a moment.
Yeah.
But then I'm beginning to realize like I need to get back to movie making as well.
Mhm.
And this is also right at the time where, because I'm autodidactic, the way I do it is I just buy the shit and I start using it, and then I start getting hired to use it, and then I become proficient at it. You could start to buy cinema cameras that weren't $70,000. And I taught myself filmmaking, and I came to it first from that early place of, yeah, like everyone gets together inside this kind of communal dream. But now to actually execute a day's shooting so that the dream can be cut together, you have to think like a photographer who's painting cubism, right? Because it's not just this one perfect angle. It's got to be all these angles that come together. And then you realize, oh, I got to learn to edit. So now the stuff I do, I shoot, I usually write it, I cut it, I color it. I've taught myself to do the CGI on it.
Well,
And it's, really edifying because, again, it's my language. It's my signature. And that's how I've always been guided in my relationship to art, is that everyone can go out and make these things. The fact that you are doing it means you should do it to the best of your ability, to the best of what that voice in your mind says, here's the way to do it, because that way it'll come out your way and it will have your signature, and thus it won't be done like anybody else in the world has ever done it. And it's brought a lot of grace to my life, because that's what I get to do professionally. You got to hustle, you got to make it work, you got to you still have to, build the world around you. And again, I've been so blessed to have my beautiful wife. These are her legs.
I had a feeling.
and and these, and again, because she's a planner, right here. Want to know a little secret to life? Run your business on a mileage credit card, and have a wife who's really good at the start of the year using the miles to book tickets for later in the year for the whole family.
Wow.
So like you're going on that trip, like it's now set in stone. You don't have to think, oh, I'd like to go do this trip. It's set. And so we raised the kids traveling around the world. My wife and I were married in India. I mean, it's a big part of our connection is that voyaging, that adventure spirit. And we have imbued our children with it. Our oldest daughter goes to college in Berlin now.
Oh, wow.
And so that's been wonderful, but we also have this great sense of building home. When I first walked into this wonderful woman who I was becoming friends with, we're working every day together at the school. I know that I'm in love with her and I'm going to be in love with her the rest of my life, but I've still got to make sure that she's convinced of that. But I went over and visited her house, and it was the first house I'd ever seen that was as colorful and every piece of it made into a piece of art as my own house. And so again, I knew, all right, well, that settles that part of it. I know we can live together and make life together. And so those elements of harmony, that's wealth, right? That's what makes you a wealthy person, is the pieces that make up the constituent bastions of your life. And I've been really, really blessed to have all those.
That's fantastic. You ever get the bug to appear in front of the camera again?
Not really, because like when I'm around a camera, man, I just want to control and do it and get the thing. Oh, here's how we're gonna see this, all this stuff.
How often? I'm curious. How often do fans reach out to you?
Not so much anymore.
Really?
So this is funny. Wait. I think I can grab this. Stand by. Oh yes, it's right here. So my mom was recently cleaning out the garage, and she saved a few things for me. This is one of them. This is the early Meeno Peluce fan club folder, inside which,
wow,
the Meeno Peluce fan club card official expires ongoing, because this is my mom's card. She's a member. You get a headshot. Your friend Meeno. You get some articles, and then she stuffed in some of these great old photos of me as a little kid.
That's awesome. That's great.
And of course, you get the pin. Like, you got to get
Of
the
course.
pin. I love Meeno Peluce.
That's fantastic.
I never took celebrity, the celebrity part of it, seriously at all. I didn't seek that, and it did not seek me. I was a working actor. When I wasn't working, I went back to this tiny private school that I'd gone to preschool through high school. I can remember the big day of receiving largesse of my celebrity was a day at the go-kart place, where like I was there as a celebrity, and when I came around on the go-kart, I could say, I want to go again, and they'd say, go ahead, and they didn't, that was a big deal. But I was certainly aware of the world of celebrity, because it welcomed my sister in with open arms, right? Like there was celebrity existence in our world, and it was her show. And again, by then, like, again, I'm 6 years older. I certainly was not in any way, there was no competition, right? But I was totally jazzed that my sister was enjoying that, and that was great. And I was certainly jazzed by the fact that when they would say, oh, well, we need you to come do a junket in Australia, my mom would say, that's fine, but you got to fly all of us. and you got to fly us to Fiji first. And, you know, so like mom made it into some family travels for us. And so that was great. A little later, because Soleil's, you know, her expanded world, like I got into some clubs and things when I'd be home from college on kind of on her coattails. But for the most part, that was her world. That was what she liked doing and was good at. My relationship to limousines was like, before I could drive, if I wanted to take a girl out, like, how am I going to go on a date? Mom goes, well, just rent a limo, go pick her up. And let me tell you, Priscilla Presley thought that was a little fishy when I came to pick up her daughter. Who's this guy in this limo picking up my daughter?
I'll have to hear about that. But do you ever do and decide to do any conventions at all? You know, fan things?
No, see, I mean,
No.
That's just not been part of
Nothing
my...
that interests you, right?
Yeah.
Well, I thank you very much for being here today. You know, honestly, it was a great pleasure for me. I loved getting to speak to you. You're welcome back anytime. And if you're ever in Florida, you have a lunch waiting if you want.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, thank you. This is Jonathan Rosen with Ike Eisenmann. Again, thanks to our special guest, Meeno Peluce. And yes, this has been Pop Culture
thank
Retro.
you.
And remember, subscribe. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.